You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth, the show that is honest, reveals the facts, truth, and statistics, and does not mess around. Follow me, Taylor Phillips, on Twitter at DT2Phillips. Email me at TaylorGatorPhillips14@yahoo.com. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter at EdSmith313, and go to our website at MichiganSportsTruth.com. Also like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth, and join our Facebook group with the same name. The Michigan Sports Truth podcast on Spreaker is also available on iHeartRadio and SoundCloud. Also a subsidiary of Sports Radio Detroit, thus available on iTunes and Podbean. This podcast is particularly not for entertainment purposes, and the views expressed by the host of this podcast are opinion-based. However, they do not come without facts, research, statistics, and truth, whether other people like it or not, and no matter how harsh or complicated it may be. This is the Michigan Sports Truth, and nothing can ever stop it from being correct.
Hey there, Michigan sports fanatics. I'm Taylor Phillips, and welcome to the Michigan Sports Truth, episode 248 on Spreaker. I'm with Ed Smith by regular phone this time because of technical issues, but he's still here. Ed, how are we doing this week?
Doing as far as I can, Taylor. Wishing you a good morning to you and to all the listeners listening live or going to be listening whenever they can. Very interesting week in terms of both of us actually dealing with technical issues concerning our Wi-Fi, but when there's a will, there's a way, so we got a way, and so here we are.
Yep, got a shorter show to discuss, but to get on the road. But we still got plenty to discuss. First off, we're gonna discuss Lions linebacker DeAndre Levy's future with the team. Then we're gonna recap college basketball rather. College football is already over. Yeah, I had to put it out there anyway, in some way. The Michigan Wolverines and Michigan State Spartans, and update Gavin Schilling. Plus my Chippewas, by the way. Not doing so great in the MAC. Also, the Pistons finally ending their road trip, yet on a high note. And analyze why Ish Smith was benched Friday. And then we're going to go to the Red Wings here and analyze their rare 3-game winning streak over 3 good teams. And finally, the Tigers continue their search for their next center fielder. They've looked at two players recently, and we'll tell you who these 2 players are later in the show, and then finally 5 questions. But first, is DeAndre Levy going to stay or not? Let's find out right now.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
DeAndre Levy, according to ESPN's Michael Rothstein, has a future that might be one of the Lions' toughest off-season decisions. Levy is due to make $8.39 million against the salary cap next season, including $5.99 million in cash. Of that money, $1.75 million is guaranteed for injury, but becomes fully guaranteed on the 3rd day of the new league year. Now, DeAndre Levy has had a lot of injuries, and they have frustrated him. He still wanted to play. He wanted to continue in he still wants to continue playing in the NFL, but his body over the past 2 seasons is making it more difficult for him to make that kind of decision. And if he's still able to return to his old form. He's one of the better coverage linebackers in the NFL, one of the more talented players at his position, snuffing out opposing plays with regularity, sniffing out. Yeah, not snuffing out. That's the wrong word for it. It's sniffing out. But if the Lions would have to hope, that would be what would happen. Meaning, what Bob Quinn said, their general manager, quote, "I think he can be the same player he was a couple years ago. It looks to me he was getting healthier and healthier as the weeks went on when he came back." That's what we envision. Then the Lions would have to hope that would. Then Levy and the Lions' defense would be on the right track. But if not, the franchise might have to make a decision whether to approach him about taking less money or moving on from him outright. And it'll be a move that would be based as much in speculation about the future as much as Levy's past. If the Lions let him go, if they decide to release him, and it's not clear what they're thinking at this point, and this is a bit of a fucked up article on the part of Michael Rothstein's writing. His grammar, I would say, and spelling a little bit. But anyway, he would have $7.2 million of dead money against the salary cap. The Lions would save $1.19 million in cap space by doing this. If the franchise designated him a post-June 1st cut, they would get back $5.99 million. So financially, it might not make sense to move on from him just yet, but the Lions badly need him healthy. So the Lions and DeAndre Levy are stuck in a tighter situation as I read all this. They need DeAndre Levy to get back healthy, get back 100%. They're in a situation where they can't release him, where chances are they cannot afford to let DeAndre Levy walk. So they're stuck with they're like stuck in a rut. It's almost like they have no decisions to make it unless they trade him or something like that, which doesn't really say anywhere in this article. But it's a tougher rut that the Lions and DeAndre Levy are stuck in. What are your thoughts, Ed?
It definitely feels a little bit in a sense of a stuck between a rock and a hard place type of thing. According to your words, grammar and spelling aside from Mr. Rothstein's article, it does bring an interesting point, being that the Lions still want to keep taking a gamble or whatnot, or taking a chance on betting on DeAndre Levy for the next couple of years or so, if he's going to have to keep continuous health episodes just like this. Now, granted, when he is full, healthy, 100%, and ready, willing, and able, he is one of, if not our best performer, if not our best performers on the defensive side of the ball. I think it was a couple of years ago he led the team in tackles, which lets you know what kind of valuable commodity you have, because goodness gracious, there was a lot of missed tackles that the Lions were doing in the open field for the better part of the season, especially in the last few games or so. So getting that, and that was even with Levy on the field, but now granted, obviously, he was working off some rust from being out for the year most of the time, dealing with his knee injury, I believe. And of course, as we all remember, the season prior, he was dealing with a apparent parasite issue that kept him sidelined for most of it, not the whole year in general. So like I said, when you have Levy out there, it gives you a valuable asset that your defense can perform better than what we usually see. You have some good players in spots. Darius Slay for the secondary, Ziggy Ansah for the defensive line, and Levy for the linebackers. You need those three guys to, in effect, make sure all those units are working in a cohesive fashion as possible, which could, by theory, inspire better defensive play. Still remains yet to be seen. That thing requires a lot more than that. But at least making sure your free core players from your free units on the defense are on the field at the same time, healthy and contributing, could probably be beneficial long term. So where they go from here, it's obviously hard to say. I think for the Lions, for better or worse, they're going to be stuck with Levy. Unless they somehow get a hell of an offer from another team. Hey, we'll give you these assets, this draft pick or whatever in exchange for DeAndre Levy. That's the only reason I could see a possible trade scenario happening.
Yeah, and I think that's the only option the Lions have. And that's one of our 5 questions. Later on at the end of this episode, and this could be a very good answer for the Lions to their question. And but I think the Lions should wait until DeAndre Levy is healthy first before they start making a decision to trade him. And I think that would be very beneficial for the organization to save up their money and not leave it dead. I mean, DeAndre Levy is a hell of a top linebacker, but I think the level of his injuries the last couple of years have kind of derailed his career in Detroit, and I think it's getting even tougher for the Lions to make a decision to keep him on their roster. It's not having an injury-prone player is not an easy is never a good thing to have on your roster.
No,
kind of like the Red Wings. Kind of like the Red Wings having Darren Helm, who has suffered too many injuries over the years with the Wings.
Or another example, the Pistons in recent years with Jody Meeks, to the point where they had no choice but to trade him.
That's true. Yeah. So there you go. Well, we're gonna move on to college basketball, and we'll get to the Tigers later on in the show. But we're gonna recap the Michigan Wolverines first.
For 3, yes, sir.
They pulled off a 91-85 win last weekend over the Nebraska Cornhuskers last Saturday. And then they played at the 17th ranked Wisconsin Badgers at Kohl Center in Madison, Wisconsin. And they put up a good fight. They lost 68-64, but that was only by 4 points. Michigan kept fighting the good fight, and they stayed in the game the entire time against a top 25 ranked team.
On the road. Yeah, exactly. Another key stat or portion that you want to look at here was how this game was contested inside the paint. Ethan Happ and Nigel Hayes, some would say you would consider to be two of Wisconsin's best players in the post, or best post scorers, were held to only a combined 8 for 20 shooting of 2-pointers and had only 6 assists total and 4 turnovers. So 2 of Wisconsin's best players did not perform as efficient enough to really put this game out of hand. Unfortunately, though, there was a lot of other things that didn't really quite help for Michigan's way either. They gave up a go-ahead 3 late in the game. Defense just really, it was good. It was a mixed bag for the defense. They were good in some instances, not so good in the other cases. It was almost like a moral victory in a sense, like you mentioned, Taylor. A 4-point loss to a top 25 team on the road. You know, it's not as bad as some of the other losses, and it gives you a little bit. It reminds me of something like how some of Beeline's teams, and this is going way back. We're talking like 08, 09, even 2010. We're nowhere near like the type of promising teams that you saw from 2011 onwards to about recently. But every once in a while, they'll give you a good enough performance to say, hey, you know, this is a team on any given night. As long as they don't quit, they don't pack it in early, they can give you a hell of an effort. Which is good for a short term for games like this, but for long term, may not be entirely ideal in terms of what you want to do in terms of making consistent trips to the tournament or whatnot, or even having strong showings or contend for conference titles. You know, it's almost like a reverse. This is like a disregarding Henry type of situation, or Franz Algernon type of situation, where you know you saw the teams under Beeline suffer some early bad seasons, catch a little bit of a break, make the tournament a couple of years. You know, things don't go quite as well a little bit after that, but then boom, they skyrocket, have great success, almost win a championship, and getting great recruits. Now after things start to slowly trickle down, you see some of these players leave for the NBA, and you don't reload well enough to replace those NBA quality players. Now it becomes a little bit of a stagnant type of situation. So it's really quite curious and interesting to see where this program goes from here on out after this season, at the very least.
Now, the Wolverines have the Illinois Fighting Illini coming up at Chrysler Center Saturday at 2:15 on BTN, and then they're home against Indiana on Thursday. The Hoosiers at 9 on ESPN2. Two more of the Big Ten's best out there, or almost the best, but the Illini, the Wolverines are going to have to get ready for, and the same thing for the Hoosiers. Any scouting reports that you have?
For Illinois, this is a team that they just recently played, a few games back that crushed them 85-69 in Champaign. So in terms of what can you improve upon for this account, they're obviously played better defense. You can't get too caught. If you want to run your zone defense, you got to execute it the right way to where you don't leave guys open for easy baskets, either at the hoop or near the perimeter. For your offense, it comes down to, can Zach Irvin not be such a frustrating jump shooter? Can Derek Walton be good enough in sharing the ball around to the other players? And can Moritz Wagner, besides being a good option inside at the post, can he finish more and score with his scoring? B.J. Wilson provides you with good rebounds. And even Mark Denal, occasionally, he's had a bit of a high field goal percentage, one of the best, if not the best for the team. You'd like to see him get a little bit more involved as well. You would like to see a more contributed effort from your starters, obviously with making their shots and not being such a liability on the defensive end where it just doesn't become a blowout as opposed, like it was last time. It becomes a little bit more of a closer affair.
Yeah, I remember watching some of the game at Buffalo Wild Wings. I listened to the end of the first half. I listened to most of the first half between the Wolverines and the Illini from Champaign. on the radio on the way to Mount Pleasant from Alma. The Wolverines kept battling and battling and kept keeping their lead until Illinois went on a 14-0 run and ended up leading at halftime. The Wolverines since then could not keep up. The Illinois Fighting Illini went on yet another run in the second half at some point, and they did not let the Wolverines come even anywhere close because of the turnovers and the inability to put the ball in the hoop. They only sometimes, but they ended up with 69 points, but they allowed 85 due to those turnovers, and Illinois got a lot of points off turnovers and on the fast break as well.
So definitely protecting the ball more is a much-needed priority this time around for this matchup.
That's true. And then you have the Indiana Hoosiers. And the Indiana Hoosiers tipping off at 9 on ESPN2. The Hoosiers, they are 13-6. They're another team that the Wolverines cannot fool around with. As the Wolverines enter,
it is a similar deal, like they just recently gone through facing Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Only this game will be at home instead of on the road for Michigan.
That's true. In fact, Indiana is almost in the top 25 as we envision it. So, do you have a scouting report on that?
Well, as I wait I guess you could say, for my screen to load on my laptop, I can tell you that Indiana, they are a well-coached team with Tom Crean at the helm, who, of course, is, I believe, the brother-in-law to Michigan football head coach Jim Harbaugh. They have their own variety of athletes as well that clearly outshine Michigan's athletic ability, unfortunately. So this could be another case of Michigan trying to overachieve as best as possible against a team that might be more supremely athletically talented than them. Players to look out for, I haven't paid too much attention to Indiana, so I can't really tell you the players per se. It's not like, I remember, they got Victor Oladipo's or the Yogi Ferrell's are there anymore, so I can pay attention to. It's just not like that for me this year. But I can say that, either on the road or at home, Indiana is still a strong team, primarily because of their coach, who makes sure they're in the right mentality to play the right way every single time out as much as possible. So Michigan alone, by that method, by that standard, will have a tough time. If you cut down the turnovers, you're going to have a good chance against any team, especially against teams like Indiana and whatnot. And it just really comes down to, can you make sure you don't have cold shooting stretches, like a Zach Irvin throwing up brick after brick, or Muhammad Ali Abdul-Rahman getting more involved in the game, or that type of thing. So it comes down to more players getting involved on offense, less turnovers, and not getting too dismantled inside the paint with rebounds and whatnot. Similar to what we did against Wisconsin, but seeing if you can actually do enough of the good things, of the small things, to pull off a win at the end.
One player to watch for Indiana is James Blackman Jr. He's a junior guard, 6'4", 200 pounds. He's averaged 17.5 points per game, 5.1 rebounds per game, and 1.9 assists per game. But he's been their leading scorer. He's been the Hoosiers' leading scorer. Also, Thomas Bryant averaging 7.1 rebounds per game. The Wolverines are going to have to try to box him out. That sophomore center from Rochester, New York, 6'10", 255. He's also those 7.1 rebounds per game are leading mostly to his 11.9 points per game, which he's averaging this season. And then you got Josh Newkirk, 3.3 assists per game. He can really pass the ball. The junior guard from Raleigh, North Carolina, at 6'1", 195. He's got 7.3 points per game and 2.8 rebounds per game. So those are the three players to watch, especially for Michigan and for Michigan State. They tip off at Indiana tomorrow at 4 on ESPN. That's on a Saturday. The Spartans, they lost to the Ohio State Buckeyes in Columbus, 72-67.
Valentine for the win!
Had too many turnovers, too many inaccurate shots, especially from three-point range. The Spartans also could not hit their free throw shots again. That's been their flaw this year, and they need to clean those departments up. You got to take better care of the ball, and you need to hit more of your free throws. You need to practice more on those.
Yeah, especially a game where the margin of points between victory and defeat was five, and you missed 6 free throws. You know, that's something that can come back. You look back on, you think, wow, how the hell did we lose this game? Considering the fact that Michigan State made better shots from the field overall, especially from was better accurate from 3-point range. Even had more rebounds than Ohio State, both offensive and defensive. Shared the ball more with more assists, 17-13, and even held their own in terms of like I mentioned, those numbers of the rebounds and the assists. It's like what you mentioned, Taylor. Those turnovers coming into play. 17 turnovers for MSU as compared to 11 for Ohio State. I'm pretty sure a good number of those turnovers were converted into points on the other end of Ohio State. So that was really 2 key things that played a factor. Because if you look at how this played out, these are 2 practically evenly matched teams. I know Ohio State has had their own struggles winning at home, but still, they're an okay team, similar record to Michigan State. And you saw how close both teams played in terms of scoring margin per half. MSU only trailed by 3 at halftime and only lost by 5 at the end. So again, it comes down to minor idiosyncrasies, i.e., taking care of the ball, and making your free throws. That plays a role in determining the outcome of the game. Ohio State pulled it off there to Michigan State, hence them getting the win. But this shouldn't be anything too alarming for Michigan State. I mean, after all, this was their first loss in terms of, I guess you could say, in 2 or so years against Ohio State. That's not the 5-game winning streak. That included 2 season sweeps and, I believe, a victory in the conference tournament. It might have been the title game itself, which Michigan State won. So, it's not, oh my goodness, head for the hills type of thing, but it's still a disappointing loss because against, a big-time conference opponent on the road, and you're within that close of a march to make something happen, just didn't get done.
Yeah, and streaks have to come to an end, unfortunately. But Michigan State still would have played a lot better had it not been for the turnovers and the lack of free throw shooting accuracy.
Not to mention Jaquan Lyle, having the great shooting night that he had. He was 5 of 7 from the field. He was from the field or for 3-point range. I forget which one was which. But he played a big factor in Ohio State, getting the amount of points that they had to win.
Mm-hmm. So, with that being said, as I mentioned before, the Spartans are at Indiana Saturday at 4 on ESPN. The Hoosiers players to watch, as I mentioned before, the junior guard James Blackman from Marion, Indiana, 6'4", 200 pounds, 17.5 points per game. The sophomore center Thomas Bryant from Rochester, New York, 6'10", 225, 11.9 points per game, 7.1 rebounds per game. And Josh Newkirk, the junior guard from Raleigh, North Carolina, at 6'1", 195, 3.3 assists per game, and 7.3 points per game, 2.8 rebounds per game. He can pass the ball. Now, the Spartans on Tuesday at 7 on ESPN2 welcome in the Purdue Boilermakers, the 21st ranked Purdue Boilermakers. One player to watch, Caleb Swanigan, 18.4 points per game and 12.5 rebounds per game for the sophomore forward from Fort Wayne, Indiana, at 6'9", 250 pounds. He's a really tall guy. It's going to take like 2 or 3 guys to get on him and box him out. The Spartans are going to have to play more zone than man-to-man coverage. Of course, they're going to have to play man-to-man at times, covering the 3-point arc. But Caleb Swanigan can really slam dunk the ball and rebound it a lot.
Yeah, and like you said, playing the zone would help in terms of guarding or trying to encase or double team a key player, in this case the player that you just mentioned, because he's so damn big, you'll try to do whatever you can to take him out, make him as non-a-factor as possible. So yeah, you may be right. Going zone may be the way to do in this type of situation.
And Purdue has outscored Michigan State in points per game, 83.1 to 72.0 this season. The Spartans are really going to have to step up their offense and their defense as well. Not only they're going to have to cover Caleb Swanigan, they're going to have to cover the rest of the teammates as well. Even Dakota Mathias at guard, the junior from Elida, Ohio, at 6'4", 200 pounds, 9.6 points per game and 4.2 assists per game. He can get the inside feed to Swanigan many times per game.
Well, most often not. I think it's safe to assume that if Michigan State repeats some of the similar success that they had against Ohio State, i.e. shooting 50% from the floor, having good 3-point range, and the only minor difference is right, they don't have too many turnovers, and even if they miss 3 or 4 free throws, it'll still be better than the 6 that they missed. You could say this will look like a very reasonable win, you would assume.
That's true. And then after that game tips off at Breslin Center in East Lansing at Michigan State University. Purdue at Michigan State Tuesday at 7 on ESPN2, and then on Sunday at 1 on CBS, Michigan at Michigan State. We're gonna have to do a really good scouting report on those two teams on our next episode. Then,
yeah, absolutely.
And then those two teams meet again in Ann Arbor at Chrysler Center Tuesday, February 7th at 9 on ESPN.
So they meet up on Championship Sunday in the NFL, and they meet 2 days after the Super Bowl. Nice.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait for that. One injury update that we like to pass along to our listeners here. According to head coach Tom Izzo, Gavin Schilling has a 99% chance that he will be done for the season. And that might not be good news here, because the way the Spartans have struggled a bit at times, they have a winning record, but it's not as good as it should have looked, especially without Gavin Schilling.
Yeah, and they just went through, they were finally getting in the groove of getting back key players, i.e. Miles Bridges, back from injuries, so now to deal with this situation scenario again is definitely discomforting, was definitely the last thing they wanted to deal with.
That's true. And is Gavin Schilling is that Gavin Schilling's last year, or is he a junior? We could at least look it up.
Looking up right now.
Okay.
This podcast is particularly not for entertainment purposes, and the views expressed by the host of this podcast are opinion-based. However, they do not come without facts, research, statistics, and truth, whether other people like it or not, and no matter how hard or complicated it may
I
be.
think he may
This
be
is the
a
Michigan
senior
Sports
since his
Truth,
fourth
and
year.
nothing can ever stop it from being correct.
Yeah, he's a senior.
Yep. He's a senior forward from Chicago, Illinois at 6'9", 240. The Spartans hate to lose him like this on his last year at Michigan State, at possibly his last year with the green and white.
Now, question, since I believe this injury took place before the season started, meaning he hasn't played a game this year, wouldn't that make him eligible for a possible 6-year?
Well, just like Ben Carter, that might be possible. So the Spartans might need him next season, because next year the Spartans with Gavin Schilling need to dominate, and we know they can with him.
Yeah, even if not, and all else fails, the worst case scenario for him would probably he could get a grad transfer. Because look at his size, and his body frame and everything. He looks like a good, prototypical NBA type of player who really hasn't gotten too much of a chance to shine in this senior year, which is as close as your evaluation as a draft prospect as you're going to get. So let's say he doesn't get the extra year. I think you can still assume he, at least if Izzo allows it and gives him a chance, he can be granted a grad transfer opportunity to go play his 5th year, but play for a different school, so he can again evaluate and raise his profile for any potential NBA draft considerations in maybe 2018.
All right. Well, we can't wait for him to get back to action from his injury.
Yeah, I wish you the best of luck and health and recovery.
Yep. My Central Michigan Chippewas got pounded at the Ball State Cardinals 98-83 in Muncie, Indiana. Too many turnovers and not very good defense by Keno Davis' ball club. They need to cut down on that. They are home against the Miami, Ohio Redhawks Saturday at 1:30. On ESPN3. The Redhawks are 8-10. Before that Ball State loss, they beat the Toledo Rockets 96-88 at McGurk Arena. They, I believe they played better defense against the Rockets than they did at the Ball State Cardinals. But they need to cut down on the turnovers. 13 turnovers by CMU, but they out-rebounded the Rockets 44-37 in that contest. And then in Muncie, Indiana, this past Tuesday, they cut down on the turnovers a little bit with 11 compared to the 13 against Toledo. And Ball State committed 13 turnovers, but the Cardinals out-rebounded the Chippewas 43-34, and that cannot happen. And the Cardinals outshot the Chippewas 55.6 to 35.3% from the floor. And that's another disaster that the Chippewas need to start avoiding. Marcus Keene still continues to be red hot, 29 points in his last game, 9 of 25 shooting. He needs to keep that up. Braylon Rayson is starting to pick it up offensively. He's reached double digits in his last few games. They need to keep that up. Now for the Red Hawks, they're not really a high-scoring team. They've only averaged 73.0 points per game compared to CMU's 88.7 per. And the rebounds per game for Miami is lower than CMU's as well, 39.9 to 35.4. The Chippewas need to take advantage of those departments. The Red Hawks have lost 4 straight. At Toledo, 91-76. At Ball State, 85-74. At Akron, 74-70. And at Northern Illinois, previously and finally, 62-58. The Chippewas, meanwhile, have lost 4 of their last 5 games, but they still have a winning record, unlike the Red Hawks. Both teams are 1-4 in the conference, but let's see if the Chippewas can take advantage and get a victory. And then they've got the 7-11 Bowling Green Falcons coming up at McGurk Arena next Tuesday. Bowling Green can't score much either, 72.0 points per game. 36.1 rebounds per game. It's a little better than Miami, Ohio's, but still lower than CMU's. Zach Denny's a player to watch, 12.2 points per game. DiMaggio Wiggins, 77.4 boards per game for Bowling Green. Also for Miami, Ohio, the key players to watch, Michael Weathers, 17.8 points per game on 45.5% shooting and 79.0 free throw percentage. Also, 5.3 assists per game. He's a key team player, key contributor for those Red Hawks. Logan McLean, 6.4 rebounds per game. He's a 6'9", 239 junior forward from Winterville, North Carolina. The Chippewas defense is going to have to box him out. 6.4 rebounds per game, as I just mentioned, leading to his 11.7 points per game. So, home against Miami, Ohio tomorrow on Saturday at 1:30, and then on Tuesday at 7 against the Bowling Green Falcons. Chippewas need to win both those games. It's a short 2-game homestand in McGurk Arena, but it's a very easy. It's an easier homestand for the Maroon and Gold before they head to Kent State next Saturday. Now we transition from college basketball to pro basketball and recap the Pistons here.
Left sideline 3, and he answers.
The Pistons ended their road trip, finished it at 2-3 with beginning with a with two blowouts at Golden State and Utah, 127-107 to the Warriors, and 110-77 at the Utah Jazz. And then they went into Staples Center and played much better basketball, and they beat the Lakers 102-97 to finish their road trip on a high note. Then they get 2 days rest, and then they return home to the Palace of Auburn Hills on Wednesday, and they crushed the Atlanta Hawks again, 118-95. That's the second time they've routed the Hawks this season. The first time at Phillips Arena, 112-85, like 2 months ago, that was like 2 months ago. And the other time at Phillips Arena, Reggie Jackson made his since Reggie's return. The Pistons didn't play too well, but they lost by 7, 105-98. That was a month ago in January, but this that was earlier this either earlier this month or late of last month. But this later here.
I believe that was on the 30th last month.
Yep, that's good. Yep, thank you. But now this month, the Pistons, even with Reggie Jackson, and I mean that actually, Reggie Jackson is getting better. They blew out the Hawks 118-95 with or without Reggie Jackson, and he's actually another key contributor as usual. Even though they've had chemistry issues with Reggie since his return, but now that that's all cleared up, the Pistons are playing a little bit better basketball. They've won their last two. They've won 2 straight. What are your thoughts?
I wouldn't quite say that everything is cleared up. Because remember, we're coming off a stretch where you blew an 18-point lead against Sacramento. You had it, you kept it close through the first half against Golden State, but they were the much better team, so it was a surprise that they pulled away. Utah was just disgusting, absolute horrible performance. They start off being down 10-0, 11-0. They try to make it back, but just too many bad decision making, horrible offensive possessions, just a lack of enthusiasm out there, period. Plus their asses getting run out of the building. Now, thankfully, they're able to right the ship a little bit against the Lakers, and of course, like you saw against Atlanta. And even to the point where I suggested, hey, with some of the teams that they're facing, maybe they'll be lucky to finish 2 and 3. But at least they accomplished that. They finished 2 and 3 on this road trip because remember they got that 1-point victory in double overtime against Portland at the very start of this trip, thanks to a Reggie. I think it was either Reggie or KCP that hit that turnaround 3. Either way, it was a close win. Then unfortunately, like you said, Golden State game happened and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope got injured. So that's really hampered their offense because KCP is not just their best 3-point shooter; he seems to be their only reliable 3-point shooter. So not having him in the lineup when you're facing teams that in this day and age of the NBA where shooting threes are almost the norm, not having your best 3-point shooter in the lineup really fucking sucks. So despite that, they've still managed to score 100 points, over 100 points for the past couple games now, 3 straight games since this injury taken place to KCP. But eventually they're going to need him back as well because, like I mentioned before, he's the best, one of the best offensive weapons, and he's performing such a good task where it's almost about, he's one of, if not your most valuable player outside of Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond, the way he's been playing this season. And Tobias Harris to a degree as well.
And John Lure has now missed 5 games, I believe. He was a game-time decision prior to the Hawks game with a sore right knee. We'll get back to John Lure in a minute, but Ish Smith was benched at Friday night at the Utah Jazz, according to an article on ESPN.com. He needed time off to clear his mind. and Stan Van Gundy put in Benno Udry for that night's game. It was just a one-night thing, but Van Gundy, through the struggling Smith, needed a night off to clear his mind, according to the Detroit Free Press. That was beat writer Vince Ellis. That was pretty much it. So Ish Smith needed one night off just to clear his mind, and yet he's still struggling offensively in terms of points. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, you figured that was going to happen anyway, because scoring, being the primary scorer, is not really a strong suit. Obviously, he was brought on initially to be the contributor to help lead the second unit. Obviously, he got bumped upwards due to Reggie's injury before the season even started. So that really exasperated some of more of his tools and capability. But primarily, he is used for moving the ball around and getting other teammates involved. Hence, him having good numbers of assists whenever he plays.
Now let's get back to John Lure. He still may be a game time decision at the Palace tomorrow night at 6 on Saturday, when the Washington Wizards come appearing like magic into town. Then the Pistons go for revenge Monday at 7:30 when the Kings of Sacramento come into the Palace. Then the Pistons have off until Saturday at the Miami Heat, but 2 more home games to finish up their 3-game homestand. Pistons kind of need John Lure to step up if he's able to play.
Yeah, especially when you're facing a Washington team that has a great big man in Marcin Gortat, and of course Boogie Cousins with Sacramento. Now, obviously, they're centers and Lure is a 4, but I'd rather have Lure in that lineup than trying to deal with, playing musical chairs and saying, one night we're going to do Aaron Baines, and the next night, let's play a little small ball here. So having Lure in the lineup probably will be a little bit better in terms of personnel that we have to roll out, so we don't be at a disadvantage too much against certain teams. About Washington, though, they're no team to sniff at. They have the second best record in the Southeast Division behind Atlanta, the team the Pistons just finished throttling. They've won 7 out of their last 8 games. Granted, they may not have the best defense per se, but they have a good offensive consistency, led by the fact that, in addition to their top 10 team in assists, that's due in large part to the fact of the efforts of one John Wall, one of, if not the best point guards in the league, obviously one of the best players in the league. So him and Gortat at the 5 gives you a good guard big man combo. And of course, we saw what Sacramento did in overcoming that lead on the 10th. So it's not too much of a rocket science to say, hey, what's the strong points or the weak points? We saw what it was when they overcame that deficit. DeMarcus Cousins is still an absolute beast. But to contain him would be the main priority, especially when he got his shine on and hit a couple of threes that played a big part of the Kings winning that game. So making sure that Cousins is going to get his on the inside, fine, but you can't let him kill you from outside, from the perimeter, any of that. So limit his damage to the paint. You're going to have a better chance of slowing down Cousins and in turn slowing down the Kings for that game.
Yeah. Remember when the Pistons blew their lead and lost 194 2 Tuesdays ago in Sacramento? They need to watch that. There are times when there are going to be times when they have the lead again, and they need to find a way to close it out. So, now he transitioned from basketball to hockey. The Red Wings, of all teams, beat the Pittsburgh Penguins 6-3 last Saturday, and then they shut out the Montreal Canadiens 1-0 on Jared Coro's second career shutout. And then they were down 4-1 after one period against the Boston Bruins. They came back to win 6-5. They're on a 3-game winning streak against 3 great teams, all of them at home.
Oh, man!
And also, they're 6-0 in the shootout.
That may be the most surprising stat above all else, because we remember lamenting in recent seasons and how Detroit was so awful at shootout times, shootout period, to determine the game, because it was one reason they didn't get as many points as they needed to help get them better seedings in the playoffs, because they were so awful at shootouts. Now this year they're 6-0. Some stats here, like Zetterberg is 2 for 2, or at least he has 2-game winners. Vanek, I remember seeing some, either Vanek or Nielsen. One of the players is a career 50% score in the shootout situation, meaning, right, for, just about every 2 shots, one of those that he does, they're going to go in. Quite astounding, and almost like an X factor of sorts needed to win or be successful in shootout situations and scenarios. So they at least have that going for them. I also appreciate, if you want to look at it another way, they're not exactly quitting, because they were facing another 3-goal deficit or facing another multi-goal deficit, similar to what they did New Year's Day against Toronto. They came back, tied up, got into overtime. The overtime period was very stressful, because I was able to catch the game on this one. A couple of good chances for both teams to maybe either center a pass or get something going. In fact, the Red Wings even got a power play in the last 10 seconds of the game before it went to the shootout. Could not capitalize, so they, of course, had to go to the shootout to get the victory. But still, a good win, good show of effort. They didn't pack it in early. It's a little conflicting to say, they probably they have a better chance of not trying to win too many games, so they could A, miss the playoffs, and B, probably get themselves a good high draft pick, to help this sort of, not a full-blown rebuild, but you can call it that, because they're not giving away everyone. They are if they were to do this, they would be keeping some players. But it just, it's a good game. And at least it's something nice for the home crowd to see in this last year for the Joe.
Yeah. I mean, it's just incredible. Red Wings beating three of the Eastern Conference playoff teams, and beating them all in like one full week, like 1/2 week actually. All of them at home, not on the road, but at home. But after the Montreal win on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Justin Rose from WXYZ, Channel 7 and ABC in Detroit, technically located in the Southfield, are the studios. Justin Rose said 2 wins in a row against the Penguins and Canadiens could mean a turning point, quote unquote, that could make this into a 26th straight playoff appearance, meaning getting knocked out in the first round again.
Are you out of your mind?
Yeah, that's a good tradition.
Yep, and that's just meaninglessly stupid, and kind of disastrous to the future, because except it's just holding it back continuously, and it's making Red Wing fans, devoted Red Wing fans everywhere, seasick, including you and me, myself, and we're getting tired of it. So it's I wouldn't say it's a turning point. That would be an exaggeration. I mean, you just can't predict when the Red Wings will come back, or if they will, or what they might do. It's only late of mid-January. There's only 3 full months to go, or 3 calendar months to go. After this, there's also the NHL All-Star break. I get that, but the Red Wings still have plenty of time to tank, and they also need to sell instead of buy. For those of you out there that are listening that think that the Red Wings are going to need to buy and come back just to keep that irrelevant playoff streak going, just so they can keep getting knocked out in the first round year after year after year forthcoming, you're wrong. That the Red Wings are never good enough to win. This year's Red Wings roster, even with Andreas Athanasiou, Dylan Larkin, and Anthony Mantha on their roster, which consists of Justin Abdelkader, Jonathan Ericsson, Drew Miller, and even the captain Henrik Zetterberg, they're still not good enough, not nearly good enough to even make it past the first round. They're definitely not. They're sure as hell definitely not good enough to win the Stanley Cup, for Christ's sakes. Come on.
Yeah, not to mention they have the likes of Steve Ott and Luke Glendening on the roster. Oh, and by the way, Jimmy Howard, one of your best performing goalies, he's suffering an injury that's keeping him out long term. So yeah, that doesn't exactly scream perennial Cup favorite.
No. And Jimmy Howard, may I add, has been injury prone, like I pointed out at least a couple times. The Red Wings made considerations in the past that they were going to trade Jimmy Howard for a couple draft picks, and it wouldn't seem like a bad idea. Mrazek and Coro had been inconsistent in between the pipes at times, but the Red Wings are also in that same situation the Lions were with DeAndre Levy, with Jimmy Howard, and with him being injury prone, that cuts off even more of his contract pay, and that's very detrimental to the Red Wings payroll. And Ken Holland even knows that too. He needs to stop his Ponzi scheme and not only listen to the fans, but look at the payroll chart and the depth chart as well for himself, and see how inconsistent those other players like Ott, Miller, Glendening, Ericsson, Abdelkader, and others have played also. And speaking of injuries, we have an injury update on Darren Helm. He could return soon. Niklas Kronwall to follow up as well. But there comes a point of time when the Red Wings need to turn to their future to try to turn this thing around starting next season. So there's that. So the Red Wings are in Buffalo tonight at 7 on Friday. Then they're home against the New York Rangers Sunday at 12:30 on NBC. The Rangers are 29-16-1. There's a game that the Red Wings might lose. But then again, the way they've been on that 3-game winning streak against the Penguins, Canadiens, and Bruins, the way they're trying to up their game, they still might have a chance to even beat the Rangers, to tell you the truth, even though we want them to lose and keep tanking. And then they're at the Boston Bruins again. They rematch next Tuesday at 7 at TD Bankworth Garden. And then they're home against the Toronto Maple Leafs, who've been one of the hottest teams in the NHL right now. They're 21-14-8. They've been in the playoff picture as of late. That drops its puck next Wednesday at 7 before the NHL All-Star break. So pretty much a full schedule for the Red Wings this upcoming week. But there are chances the Red Wings might lose.
You would hope so.
Mm-hmm. So with all that, only one team left to cover, and that's our Detroit Tigers.
That one is long gone.
They have been getting in touch with Peter Borges and Gregor Blanco. Gregor Blanco recently signed with the Arizona Diamondbacks, so the Tigers have been in touch with. Tigers have only Peter Borges left, and they need to start making a move soon. General Manager Al Avila has been waiting too long now to make some kind of move. The Tigers need a center fielder, and they need one either right now or soon. Do you have any analysis on Peter Borges?
Peter Borges, he hit 23 homers last year, had a 251 batting average for the Phillies. In terms of reading the article from the Free Press, it says he has speed, but numbers really didn't show in terms of the stolen bases. Could be a good commodity in the outfield, good defense. Could be a very nice pickup in terms of either being the mentor to one of the young guys that you have, or being a good veteran backup to the young guys that's getting their start. I would rather take my chances. If you want to give a start in terms of who I'd like to get, you can probably say Jacoby Jones deserves a chance, even Tyler Collins. And then, of course, if you get this signing done, maybe Borges, as opposed to Anthony Ghost. So I think not only is a liability in both terms of playing field, but is a complete idiot in terms of his comments, and probably has a bad attitude with one of with the coaches, hence him not getting that much playing time this year. So I'd rather deal with those three options and cut Ghost loose. But he's still on the team, so he'll get his shot, however unfortunate as they may seem to be. But Borges, he's only 29 years old, so he still has a good amount of prime left in him, or capability in him to be productive enough throughout his career. So this could be if it gets done, this could be a very solid pickup with the Tigers, who will, in my opinion, will put them, a couple pieces needed away from being a team to look out for to maybe get a wild card spot. And if they get a wild card spot, offense or offense, that they can do is anything. They go as far as they can between their starting pitching and making sure key guys in their offense don't get hurt.
Now I want to go back to the Red Wings here. There was an article last month that we kept missing. That was on Tatar's next Red Wings contract on thehockeywriters.com. Tony Wallach, the editor of that article, Tatar is in his final year of his. He scored 29 games, 4 goals in 29 games, going into December 13th with 11 total points so far in the final year a 3-year 8 point. Yeah, he's in the final year of a 3-year $8.25 million contract signed July 27, 2014. Let me look up Tomas Tatar's stats right here. Right now, Tomas Tatar has 10 goals, 12 assists, 22 points, a -3, and 92 shots on goal. Those are not bad numbers.
Not ideal, but not spectacular either.
No, but not terrible. But we still expect more from Tomas Tatar. But his slump going into December 13th made it tougher on Red Wings general manager Ken Holland to make a decision on Tomas Tatar, which will be upcoming after his final year of the 3-year contract that he is in right now. Tatar still has room to grow. He's only holding a larger role this year. Tatar's ice time fell under Jeb Blashill's guidance last season, but he still managed to pop 20 goals for the second consecutive season. His ice time fell further in the playoffs when Blashill opted to play Brad Richards on Datsuk's wing and thought Tatar was better suited for the fourth line alongside Joachim Andersen and Andreas Athanasiou. Again, Holland and Blashill kicking the youth to the curb at that point in time. But now, the youth, those young players, and now with Anthony Mantha being added, are stepping up. That they have shown that they've proven worthy to stay on this Red Wings roster, and they are the future. They are the leading future of this organization. And Tatar's 17 minutes and 22 seconds of time on ice per game ranks third among Red Wings forwards, up from 14-21 last season. Now, the contract prediction at the end of this article reads, by Tom Wolak, when the two sides meet, they'll surely have different ideas of what the contract should be. Tatar's management team will likely propose a 5 to 6 year contract, which would pay around $5.5 million annually. Holland's ideal contract would have a similar term, but with a price tag closer to that of Gustav Nyquist or Justin Abdelkader's contracts. After all the haggling, stat tossing, and clause offering has come to a close, the two sides will agree on a 6-year, $30 million contract for Tatar, averaging an even $5 million per season, like Darren Helm. So this could mean yet another overpaying contract by general manager Ken Holland.
Yeah, I mean, if you've seen his track record in recent years, you wouldn't be too surprised. But is it really worth it? Granted, Tatar may be a good player, but is he really worth all that money? Is the question.
Yeah, and that's been one of Ken Holland's attributes, trying to overplay each player that the Red Wings have had on their roster for the last few years, including Jonathan Ericsson, Justin Abdelkader, Darren Helm, Danny DeKeyser, for God's sake. Again, the Red Wings are trying to re-sign their veterans to long-term. They're the same, or just the same players that they've had that don't produce, to long-term contracts anyway, because Ken Holland actually thinks they're good enough to get them into the playoffs, but they haven't they haven't even, but that's only to keep their playoff streak going, and they haven't even reached the conference final since 2009, as we pointed out hundreds of times.
They haven't even gotten to the second round in what? Since it's going to be 4 years now this year.
Four in the last 5 years they've failed to make it to the second round. That is beyond terrible. And hopefully Ken Holland realizes that, but right now he's still trying to get that playoff streak going and their mediocrity. But that's another one of our 5 questions, which we're going to get to right now. You ready for it?
Absolutely, Taylor. Go ahead and let him rip.
It's time for 5 questions on the Michigan Sports Truth.
Question number 1, do the Lions keep DeAndre Levy, or do they trade him or let him go? I'd say they trade him.
Some of them, they're going to keep him. I don't think they can afford to release him. I think they would rather go through a situation where if they do have to part ways, they will be hoping to get something of value or any kind of value back in return instead of just letting him walk out the door. So it's either that or they keep him. And someone tells me they'd be more inclined to keep him because they already got rid of one linebacker in Calvin Noy. So unless they draft another this year or they somehow sign one in free agency, I doubt they're going to be parting ways with DeAndre Levy this soon and this quickly.
Next question.
Question number 2, did the Michigan State Spartans still need Gavin Schilling in their lineup this season?
Yeah, he's a body. He's depth. It helps. And with his size and what he can do around the rim, yeah, any type of help would be extremely beneficial. I wouldn't say it's the difference between them being a fringe contender, a fringe Big Ten title contender, and maybe a favorite to win it all. But yeah, losing a player like that, it does hurt your team, hurt your chances of trying to have as productive seasons as you can imagine. But they're still a good team. They're still solidly built through other parts and pieces. And it's got Tom Izzo as their head coach. So even with this setback of dealing with the injury, not him, but the Ben Carter as well, it's not, obviously, as you can tell how they played, it hasn't slowed them down in any sense as of late.
Next question.
Question number 3, was benching Ish Smith the right idea from Pistons head coach Stan Van Gundy?
I think it could be, for the sense of if Ish really needs something to clear his head, maybe this will do him better good long term. Now, granted, if there's anything that should need to be benching, in my opinion, is Reggie Jackson. It may be unpopular to say, but ever since he's gotten back, there has been some whatever stagnant issue of erosion regarding chemistry or sharing the ball or having productive possessions offensively. Reggie Jackson, because he's a point guard, because he's a starting point guard, he is, by default, is going to be at the forefront, the center of it. So seeing all this happening since he's come back, now maybe they're trying to remedy and rectify that now. But if he keeps going like this, maybe Reggie will get his turn to sit on the bench next. But for Ish's sake, yeah, I think it was the right call.
Next question.
Question number 4, with the Red Wings winning 3 straight over 3 good teams, are they still trying to keep their playoff streak and their mediocrity going?
I would say yes. The way they're playing, they're not giving up. They haven't. It's like for some reason it hasn't clicked into them yet, and reminds me, listen, this is nowhere near a cup contender of a team. We'll be lucky to get to the first round, and if so, what? You're going to get your asses beat again, and maybe even swept in embarrassing fashion. Farewell to the Joe on that one. So I would rather you miss the playoffs and get a good draft pick and do everything you can to either rebuild/reload in the off season and set yourself better for time instead of sacrificing that long-term success for a short-sighted, short-term goal, which is as meandering as making the playoffs.
Next question.
Question number 5. Can the Tigers still pick up Peter Bourjos and use him as their next center fielder?
It depends. Are they going to have the money to do it? I think Bourjos will command a nice penny. Some people thought that the Tigers weren't going to have enough to get Alex Avila. They did that, but who knows how much that leaves them left over. It's a toss-up at best, I would say. If they get them, perfect. If not, I would rather, it'll be uneasy, but hoping in either Tyler Collins or Jacoby Jones to be productive in center field would be a prime option as opposed to Anthony fucking Ghost. So,
which they designated him for assignment. Yeah.
That's even wonderful. So, either of those guys will be fine. But in terms of getting a veteran on board to show the young guys how it's done and teach them so that when it's their turn, they know what to do, yeah, it will be ideal to get Borges in this situation. So I would say yes.
All right, that's our 5-question segment. And for all the listeners and fans out there, if you want to answer those questions, just replay the episode and answer them in the comment bank below this episode. And that wraps up episode 248 of Spreaker's Feed of the Michigan Sports Truth. Ed, I'll talk to you again next week on episode 249.
Can't wait, Taylor. Looking forward to it.
All right. And before we sign off, we want to remind everyone to share this episode and our entire podcast on social media. Have their friends share that as well, and follow me on Spreaker as Taylor Phillips online at Spreaker.com, because I want to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth podcast is in search of local advertising sponsors. If anyone has a business that's interested in sponsoring this program, you can follow Sports Radio Detroit on Twitter at Sports Radio DET, that's Sports Radio Det, and send them a direct message or email them at sportsradiodetroit.com in the contact section. Also email Roger Castillo at rajcast81@gmail.com. Also like their Facebook page and join their Facebook group. And finally, find their podcasts available on iTunes and Podbean. For Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow us on Twitter at DT2Phillips with 2 L's and at EdSmith313. And like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth, and join our Facebook group. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks very much for listening, and TTFN, ta-ta for now. Bon appetit.
Bon appetit.